What's up, friends? Welcome to Web3 Academy, a place for entrepreneurs, creators, and marketers to explore and learn how to use Web3 to transform business models and create thriving communities. Enjoy this next episode. GM, what's up, friends? Welcome to Web3 Academy. It is the weekly roll-up. I'm your co-host, Jay Hamilton, coming at you from Whistler, Canada. And today, my usual co-host, Kyle Reedhead, is away at the Permissionless Conference, which I'm sure many of our listeners are at as well. So we got special guest J-Dog filling in for Kyle today. What's up, J-Dog?
How's it going? Jer Bear works as well. I don't mind that.
I don't know that one. Jer Bear, is that
that's from my childhood.
Okay, I was wondering if that was the wife's nickname for you.
Oh,
Sounds rather
She just
cute
calls me
intimate. Babe, the classic. Nice. Well, wow, we got a really exciting and almost a special episode, I would say, today. Our initial plan, we sort of threw out the window yesterday when Andreessen Horowitz released their State of Crypto report. This is a 56-page report, and what we're going to do for you today is, rather than our typical go through the news for the week, which there was tons of news. So come into our Discord if you want to see the regular news. But this State of Crypto report is badass, hot fire, so well written, so much great stuff in it. And it's 56 pages. So if you're like many people in many of our listeners, you probably don't have time to read a 56-page report. So we're going to break it down for you and give you our take, the Web3 Academy take, and tell you everything you need about this report. So you can just listen to this podcast instead of reading the report, and we'll make sure you're on top of it. But before we go into the report, as always, we're going to share some gratitude because taking a minute for appreciation is so important, especially in these challenging market times. So, Jer, what are you grateful for today?
I'm grateful for my mom. Lately, I've just been able to spend a lot more time with her than normal, and so it's just nice to be able to get that family time. So yeah, just very thankful for my mom that she lives close and that I can see her frequently now.
That's great, man. Yeah. I am grateful for. It's sort of same wavelength. I'm grateful for my fiance Sam's parents. So my in-laws. Nice. And I'm grateful for them because they have been staying with us at our new house the past week, and they have been incredibly helpful. We are renovating our home, and so they've been painting and staining and spackling holes in walls and nice. Cutting wood to make a new trim and new frame around some of our windows, and they've been just so helpful. And it's really nice when you're doing such a big project and, we're working all day and then trying to do renos in the evening, and having them here and just chipping in has been very helpful. So Gord and Jane, thank you. You guys rock. They're not going to listen to this podcast, but I'll tell them I shouted them out.
You guys need your own renovation TV show.
I got too much to do to make another piece of content. Okay. Well, what is our Web3 word of the week, Jeremy?
I think that this week we will go with build. There's a lot of building going on right now. We'll see that today, but prices are not always going to go up, and when they go down, best thing that we can do is build and innovate and keep moving forward. So build. Hells
yeah. I love that. Yeah, now is the time to build. Don't be Mr. Market, be Bob the Builder. This is when we build the future, and there's so much opportunity right now. It makes me think about the internet in the 90s, and when I don't exactly remember what it was. I think it was the late 90s when the internet had a crash, and there was a lot of people who left because they were like, oh, prices are going down. I'm out of here. This isn't a thing. This is just a fad. And if you left at that point, you missed out on the biggest innovation cycle there's been in the last 30 years. That's when social media was created. That's when all of the video streaming platforms were created. So much came out of that. And here we are again. So yeah, great word, Jeremy. Let's build.
Let's build.
Yeah. Okay, Jared, let's jump into this state of crypto report.
Okay. Let's see.
Let's start at the beginning because I really like the way that they start with what is Web3.
All right, let's go here then. What is Web3? I'm going to take this part.
Yeah, they break this down into the Web 1, Web 2, Web 3. And I'm sure many of you guys have heard this before, but I just think it's something you can't hear enough because it helps us understand the whole space. So here's their breakdown. The first era of the modern internet, roughly 1990 to 2005, was about open protocols that were decentralized and community governed. Most of the value accrued to the edges of the network, users, and builders. The second era of the internet, roughly 2005 to 2020, so Web 2, was about siloed, centralized services. Most of the value accrued to a handful of large tech companies, Facebook, Google, Netflix, etc. Now, Web 3, we are now beginning the third era of the internet, what many call Web 3, which combines the decentralized community-governed ethos of the first era with the advanced modern functionality of the second era. This will unlock a new wave of creativity and entrepreneurship.
I love that.
Yeah, and I bring that up because I think that it's important to understand, where we're at and what we're doing. And we spend so much time talking about the details, and a lot of people talk about price, but there's a movement happening here that's deeper than just the new business that came out or the funding that came out. And so it's important to understand really why Web3 matters, which, Jared, maybe you want to take it away here that's their next section here.
Next section, yeah, why Web3 matters. And then they have a breakdown here of the current internet as we know it and why it is flawed. And they point out that we're currently in a digital authoritarianism where everything is owned by these big tech companies, our data, everything. And that's one of the beauties of Web3 is that it's kind of breaking those chains and giving ownership back to the people, the users.
Yeah, and you think about digital authoritarianism, you think about China or North Korea, places in the world where you actually don't even have control of digital access and control of your digital property. It's all controlled by the government. And so that's what an awful situation to have censorship in that way, and how that impacts a culture and freedom of speech. And so, wow, that's a terrible situation. We're lucky. Jared, I know, Jared lives in Texas and I'm in Canada. So we're lucky we're not part of that. But so many people in the world have that scenario. We have our scenario is big tech oligopoly, right? We're in this scenario where we're basically stuck with 5 massive companies: Facebook, YouTube, Google, Apple, Amazon, controlling everything. And that's not what we want, right? That's flawed.
Yeah, and the amount of people that they're, touching, billions of people, use Facebook and all the platforms that they have underneath them now. And it's a scary world to think that a handful of people can be making decisions that are affecting billions of people like that.
And really what that did was Web 2, because Web 2 became this way it was all about okay, who can hold the most attention? We created this attention economy. And because of this attention economy, it led from cooperation, which was the Web 1 way of open source, let's build together, to competition. And that's what led to these massive companies, because there was so much competition and so much focus on extracting value in order to satisfy investors and satisfy shareholders, as all these Web2 companies went public. So the users and the creators got fucked. Like all the users and creators got left behind. And so Web2 sort of lost that friendly, let's build together, going back to our word of the day, build. Web2 is not building together and building in a cooperative way. It's now building behind silos, walls, and walled gardens. And that's not how we create the future.
No, and they've got this great infographic here, and we've seen a couple different iterations of this, but it's awesome how they broke it down. You've got Web 1, where you are just reading, you're digesting information and content from online. Web 2, you're reading, but now you're able to write, so you can actually start creating content and contributing online. And then Web 3, you can read, you can write, create, but now you own. So we move from Web 2, where we are the asset, to now we get to own assets, and what we create, we get to see the benefits of it.
Yeah, and holy shit, what an unlock ownership is, right? Like really, that is the ability to own digital property. What that does for the future of the internet and the web is that's really the baseline of all this innovation that's happening. And so this sort of goes back to what this next slide shows, is basically the value share between Web 2 and Web 3. And Web 2, the value, as I said before, all goes towards the investors, right? So they show sort of four groups here. You have users, creators, builders, and investors. And in Web 2, the users get none of the value, basically. The creators, unfortunately, also get none of the value. And we'll talk about that actually later in this report, when we look at the take rate that these massive Web 2 companies have, and how little flows to the creators, the artists, the musicians, the YouTube creators. Like, they're not making a living because of this current structure. All the value flows to the investors. The builders also get a lot of value in Web 2, but the builders are working full time for these large Web 2 companies. So they're also they're building just for the investors, not even able to innovate, right? Whereas in Web 3, we have this ability to have users, creators, builders, and investors all share value and all have opportunity to have the same value, and it's all connected through the token. Right, through a token that connects their ability to have value, and then also have governance and build community. I mean, it's so empowering, so empowering.
Yeah, I love the difference between these two charts. This Web3 value share, everyone is even. You got the users, creators, builders, and investors, and I think it's just a really cool visual representation of WAGMI. Like, regardless of what category you fall into, right there, we're all going to make it.
I love that, man. I love that. It's cool. So true. And it makes sense, right? Like, what is the world do we want to build here? Do we want to build a world where the rich get richer, and where our objectives as businesses or organizations is just to shareholder value? Because that's the world we live in right now. And I'll guarantee, if you're a listener out there, I'd love to hear from you. Tell us, what's the world do you want to build? You want to build, I'm assuming we all want to build this world of shared value, right? Let's, again, Jerry, you said it best. That's the WAGMI graph. Let's throw that up in Twitter and then call that the WAGMI graph. I love that.
Yeah, we need to coin that. That's beautiful. And so this next section, we've got Web3 empowers a collective owned future over a corporate or government owned future. And that just kind of hits on what we were just talking about. They've got a couple of different charts here where you've got, 1 point, kind of more the centralized businesses or industries, and then everything stems out from that or comes back. And then it's slowly, you got single points of failure and control, where you got multiple points and different lines branching out of that, and then more this Web3 where everything is interconnected. And
it's this centralized to decentralized, and here's the problem with centralized is single points of failure and control, right? Centralized could, if you're in a centralized system and there's a failure, the whole system goes down, right? And then they also have this control where they can decide to do things like, deplatform you, right? Which is, we've seen affect people in huge ways. We talked in our last podcast about how Bankless got deplatformed by YouTube. Now, thankfully, YouTube recognized the mistake and got Bankless back up on YouTube. But that's a major crypto media company that was affected. Their entire business, not their entire business, but a good portion of their business is their YouTube content. And all of a sudden, boom, one algorithm says you're out, we have control, and you have nothing you can do. And that's awful. Whereas the Web3 model, it's resilient, it's equitable, and it's participatory, right? We're all in this together. And yeah, what a difference.
Love that. Next we have cycles of innovation. This section is really cool. It shows how the crypto market develops in cycles. And so the big driver is price. People see the price go up and they get excited and want to be a part of it. That stems into more interest around the different companies and protocols that are, going up in value. And then from there, you've got new ideas. So people are thinking about it more and, what else can we create? And then you've got the final piece, which is startups and projects. And I think that's maybe where we're heading right now, where it is this building environment. And I think that probably is the focus on the current cycle that we're in.
Yeah, let's build. Yeah, skip this next one. There we go. So I think that what's important to see here, and they make this point through several graphs of they have the global crypto market cap, they have developer activity, they have startup activity, and they have social media activity. And they're showing the growth of each of these things. And I think what we find is when we're in the day-to-day, humans have this incredible inability to zoom out and see the big picture. We're so focused on yesterday and today. And so we feel like we're on this crazy roller coaster, right? We feel like these cycles are chaotic and, oh my gosh, there's huge swings and it's up and then it's down. And then we get so much fear, right? And then the fear leads us to be like, oh gosh, we shouldn't be doing this, right? But here's the thing, and this is just one of my favorite takeaways from this entire report, is when you zoom out, and these graphs are showing from roughly like 2011 to 2022. So about the last decade, the zoom out shows consistent long-term growth, right? So we are actually consistently growing. Yes, there are peaks and valleys along the way of growth, and that's part of growth because you need a feedback loop and you need to garner interest, and sometimes that interest peaks and then it valleys, and you need innovation. And sometimes innovations like Terra Luna unfortunately fail, right? But you need to be trying those things, and you need to go through those failures in order to see what lands and what stays long term. And this chart just shows that so well, that consistent long-term growth. Like basically, the global crypto market cap is up 270% from 2011 to 2022. Developer activity is up 70%. Startup activity is up 60%. Social media activity is up 83%. So consistent long-term growth. And I think it's, again, like it's important to remember that. Let's not get caught up in like the bad days and the bad weeks. Take a deep breath. We're on a long-term path here to building something huge. And a lot of the numbers throughout this report will show the path that we're on.
Yep. I think what excites me most about these charts is this social media activity. You see that in 2021, it just has the most massive spike that we've seen in any of the charts, really, compared to the previous years. And so if we go back up to this chart up here, interest, right? I think way more people are now exposed to crypto and Web3. And so they're searching for it, they're sharing, they're learning more about it. And so I think this next cycle that we are a part of is going to be absolutely mind-blowing.
Yeah. This next section is all about layer one blockchains, and there's a few sections here about blockchains. I think we won't dive deep into these sections. We're actually going to do a deep dive into blockchains in our podcast, our Spotlight podcast in not next week, but 2 weeks from now, because blockchains is a very important thing to understand. I mean, that's the base level technology of all of this. There's a few things that we should call out here, Jer, so don't scroll quite through all of it. Maybe scroll back up a little bit. I just don't want to spend too long on the blockchain stuff because it's getting a little bit into the weeds. And if we're going to do this, we need to do it in the right way so everyone understands. But yeah, this is the first one that I wanted to call out. Web3 is multi-chain. You know, you hear a lot of, you don't hear maxis so much anymore, but you used to hear a lot of maxis, you know, talking about their chain is the only chain. Web3 is definitely multi-chain, right? There's here on this chart, they're showing 6 chains: Ethereum, Solana, Polygon, Binance, Avalanche, Phantom, and they show the size of all these chains. And all these chains they range from like 300,000 active addresses up to 15 million active addresses, and daily transactions from 700,000 up to 15 million. So all these chains are big, and they're getting big, and Web3 will be multi-chain. I think that's the main takeaway here. There will be the opportunity to build on different chains, which does bring up the question of like, which chain should I build on, and how do I think about that? And again, don't want to get into that conversation today, but a conversation that is important to be had. So if you guys are in our community, in our Discord, let us know if you have questions around that. Would love to chat more about that.
Yep, and this next chart shows that basically while other smart contract platforms might rival Ethereum in users and usage, the demand for block space is unmatched on Ethereum. And the chart, yeah, it's just it trumps any, like the closest one is Binance, and it just pales in comparison.
Yeah, definitely. Ethereum is the big dog right now. Let's stop at the next one because this is really interesting. This is another big takeaway I had. The next one, Jer.
Oh, next one. Gotcha.
Another big takeaway I had from this is, so this is a chart that shows that Ethereum, this is a chart of developers, monthly active developers since launch. And so we have Ethereum with 4,000 monthly active developers. And then we have Solana next with about 1,000 monthly active developers. And then we have everyone else sort of floating between the 500 to 1,000 number. And I think here's the big takeaway I had from this is, holy shit, this is so small. Like, yeah. As if there's only 4,000 developers on Ethereum.
That's wild. Globally.
Like, globally? That's a joke. That's so tiny, right? And Solana only has 1,000. Like the only comparison I could find to this was that Roblox has 350,000 active developers on it. So just to give you like a comparison, and that's just Roblox, right? Like not to mention all the other developers there are in the world. So wow, we are so early. Like we have created $1 trillion industry off of these blockchains, and there's only like, I don't know, in total maybe like 6,000 developers, 6,000 to 8,000 developers in the world building this stuff right now.
Nuts. Yeah.
What?
When I saw that number, I was like, I bet you in downtown Austin, where I'm at, there's in a square mile, there's more developers, Web2 developers than there are the entirety of Web3 developers right now.
Yeah. And I mean, we said this multiple times, like the most important resource when you're building a new industry, a new technology, the way we are, is talent. That's what you need to build. You need human resources. And the joke in the industry right now is everybody's hiring and you can't hire because there's just not enough developers. And like, oh my gosh, this chart shows it perfectly. So I don't know, if you're out there and you're a student right now, if you're in school still, like, get into coding and developing, learn Web3 development, and you will be set for life. I feel like I need to call my nieces and my nephews immediately and tell them to stop doing whatever they're doing and start coding.
No kidding. I think, yeah, if you're a Web2 developer too, and you've been on the edge, like, wondering if you should jump into Web3 and learn the languages there or not, I think this is a great chart. Shows you there's a lot of upside. There's a lot of demand for it. So if you make the jump, I think you will find yourself working on some cool stuff, being very busy.
And that's really the goal of Web3 Academy. We want to onboard you to Web3 and help you make that transition. So if you're here and you're listening and that's what you're looking to do to get a job in Web3, that is exactly what we want to help you do. Reach out to us personally. Happy to get on a call with you to talk about how you can make that transition. We are available. We are building this community around growing and onboarding more people to Web3. So a quick little shill for Web3 Academy, but we want to be part of that with you. So straight up, like, if you're looking to get a job in Web3 and you're not sure what step to take, please drop me a line, drop me a DM on Twitter, or come into our Discord. I'm happy to help you in any way I can.
Yep. And just to add on to that, we've got a developer channel only. So it's a bunch of Web3 developers in there, or Web2 developers who are wanting to learn about it. And there's just every day people are sharing, different resources and stuff. It's really starting to become a really cool community in there. Anyway, that's the last plug for a second. Do you want to hit on layer 2?
I don't think there's a lot to, again, this is okay. So the next section of the report is all about layer 2. Let's just, quickly, layer 1 versus layer 2. So layer 2 is a separate blockchain that extends the base layer and inherits its security guarantees. So basically, like, you're going to hear a lot about layer 2s because when we built layer 1s, or we are building layer 1 blockchains, we didn't build them for scale, right? We built them for security and for safety so that we could create digital property, right? In order to make digital property, we needed to ensure that it was, trustless, permissionless, immutable, all these characteristics, which are really around security, right? And so we built those layer 1s so that they ensured that. But now that we're onboarding millions and ideally billions of people to use the blockchain, we're realizing, like, oh shit, like, layer 1s can't handle that scale. So that's where layer 2s can't come in. So layer 2s are separate. They're extended. They're built on top of layer 1s. And essentially they just bank the security of layer 1 and ensure cheaper fees, cheaper gas. I mean, that's probably the biggest one. And I think there is a chart in here somewhere about that. Here it is. Yeah, so here's a chart of layer 2 rollups are competing hard against each other to bring transaction fees down. I think that's the biggest thing that we keep hearing about. And so here's an example. Jared, what are we looking at here?
So first up, we have the Metis network, where using their layer 2, it costs 1 penny to send ETH. And if you've ever sent anything using Ethereum, you know that it costs a lot more than that. But then we've got Loopring, ZK Sync up at 22 cents, Polygon 25 cents. Optimism, we've been talking more and more about that on the program, but 88 cents there.
And that's compared to $4.50 to send on Ethereum. So you're talking like pennies, a significant fraction of what it currently costs on Ethereum. And I think that's the big takeaway of layer 2 is, like, let's bring these transaction fees down so more people can use it. And that's exactly what's happening now. There's some other details about layer 2 as well.
Yeah, what they said here I think is cool. It's L2 rollups pay for Ethereum security. So you're getting the cost effectiveness of the layer 2, but still the security of Ethereum.
Yes.
DeFi. You want to hit on some of this at all?
Yeah. This is, I mean, cool. I think DeFi was really the first boom that we saw in crypto. So I think DeFi is so important to hit on because it is what is so far brought in the most assets and onboarded the most people to crypto in DeFi summer, really, which was last summer. And this is a really, Jared, you want to talk about this this page? This is really interesting.
Yeah. So it says a huge part of the world is understanding by existing financial institutions.
Underserved.
Underserved. What stands out here is just a wild number to think about, but there are 1.7 billion people who do not have access to a bank account. And that's crazy, right? In the time that we live right now with all the technology and all the resources, that's crazy. That's what a quarter of the population almost does not have access to bank accounts.
Completely unacceptable. Like that is completely unacceptable. That is, our system has failed us.
Yeah. And then you've also got remittance payments. And there it says that 650 billion in global remittances annually are paid with an average cost of 6%.
Okay, so quick pause here. To be perfectly honest and show my ignorance sometimes, I'm not far from the smartest person in the room. I had to look up remittance because I was like, what is a remittance payment? Yeah. Like, what does that even mean? So a remittance payment is essentially anytime you send money, right? So we are sending money to each other around the world all the time, right? So 650 billion globally was like transferred around the world between all the humans last year, right? And the average cost of transferring all that money is 6%. So, and I'll guarantee that's the average. So that means that there's a lot of people paying higher than 6%. And I'll bet you it's the ones that don't have bank accounts or don't have access to funds, right? They're the ones that are hit the worst by this, because if you don't have a bank account, then you rely on quick cash or all those, what do you call those? All those those places that charge you big interest, cash day loans, like all those places. Mm-hmm. So your family is in Ukraine or in Eastern Europe or in a part of Asia, and you've left your family and now you're in North America and you need to send money back to them, right? But they don't have a bank account, so you can't send them money easily. So you have to use one of these kind of sketchy, real scammy money wire transfer. So that's what we call them, wire transfer services, right? And they'll take like 10, 20%, right? So, it's really affecting the underserved, the emerging economies, and those people the most, which are the people that need the money the most, right? So crazy.
This blew my mind right here. So of the 1.7 billion people who do not have access to a bank account, it says that of those, 1 billion have access to a mobile phone and about 500 million have the internet. So there really is no reason at this point, if people have access to mobile device and they can connect to the internet, that 500 million people still are unbanked.
No, it's time to get these people onto the payment rails in some way. And clearly the current banking system isn't capable of it. They can't do it. So here comes crypto and Web3. Yes, save the day for us. Holy geez.
And it shows it too. So this next one shows that DeFi has grown from nearly 0 to over 100 billion in less than 2 years. There's obviously, a big demand for it. People want to use it. And I think as more people begin to get onboarded to Web3, this is just going to grow significantly.
Yeah, it's wild. So let's skip through a couple more here. Skip through the DeFi. There's a slide all about proof of stake is coming to Ethereum. I think we should skip that because, again, we're going to chat about this in our podcast in just under 2 weeks. when we have Sam Andrew on the podcast, who's been doing a ton of research on this stuff. This one's interesting though.
This one shows that, DeFi would represent the 31st largest US bank by total assets under management. And it looks like, oh man, yeah, there's just so much room for growth. This is crazy.
Yeah, wild. I mean, you got the biggest, JP Morgan Chase is the largest US bank with over 3 trillion under management. But then you have DeFi with currently somewhere between 100 billion to 200 billion. The Terra Luna crash pulled out like 20 or 40 billion out. So we had a big drop recently. Had this report been released before that, we would have had probably over 200 billion, but it's a little bit smaller. But needless to say, yeah, like DeFi is growing and it's here to stay. Speaking of Luna, stablecoins. Yeah, so let's talk about stablecoins because they do a section in this report about stablecoins. And I think it's worth taking a minute to chat about. The learning about stablecoins is so important because digital money is clearly something that we need, that was proved by the fact that 1.7 billion people don't have access to bank accounts. So we need digital money, and stablecoins are really the base layer of that. And I think it's important to understand stablecoins, and there are different types of stablecoins. So let's talk first about the primary categories or the different types of stablecoins. So you have mainly of 3 different types. You have fiat-backed stablecoins. So those are stablecoins that are backed by USD. So they have the cash equivalent or other assets that back that stablecoin. So USDC would be an example of that, and USDT Tether is an example of that. Then you have crypto backed. So those are backed by crypto assets held in smart contracts. And then you have algorithmic, and those are algorithmically balanced supply and demand. Now, algorithmic, those are the type of stable coins that we are unsure if they're going to work because that's what Terra Luna was, right? Terra Luna was an algorithmic stable coin. It crashed in a way that nobody foresaw. Well, some people might have claimed that they foresaw it, but awful situation. But I want people to understand that is not the only type of stablecoin. And I'm not convinced that algorithmic stablecoins will work, but stablecoins, there is other types, fiat backed or crypto backed, those will work. An example of crypto backed, like DAI is an example of crypto backed. So I just want to make sure that people aren't like jumping ship on stable coins and not in total fear state because of Terra Luna. Be careful if you are investing in stable coins or you're putting money in stable coins. Be careful which one you use, but don't think that they're all bad, because there are stable coins that are very stable and will work in the long term. It's really interesting. Our team had a session yesterday about stablecoins specifically, and one of our team members is from Russia, and she's left Russia now as a result of the war and just the challenges with living in Russia. And now she's living in Turkey, and she cannot accept money any other way right now. She cannot. When she left Russia, she took as much money out of her bank account as she could. But when we pay her in stable coins, and she doesn't yet have a bank account outside of Russia. So she can only, her means of spending is she takes money in stable coins, and then she uses some guy in Turkey, I guess, that like will pay her cash for her stable coins. But it's, stable coins are a big part of bringing banking to the people that don't have access to it.
Mm-hmm. And thank God for these, so that people like that can actually access their money. It's
Mm-hmm.
so sad to think that if that was not the case, that they would be in a much worse off place. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this next slide, it shows the increasing use of stable coins. which really demonstrates the demand for a digital dollar, right? So this slide shows that in total, we're about $150 billion in stable coins currently, but it is going up. And since, that's since like early 2021, we were at, so just over a year ago, we were at 50 billion, and now we're over 150 billion. So this is increasing at a rapid pace.
Absolutely. Let's see. So we've touched
you can
on
skip this one unless you understand that one. I didn't get that one.
No, not a lot. I was just gonna highlight those three.
Yeah, I think this is the one that is interesting to me. Is stablecoins represent just a tiny fraction of the world's money supply. So right now we've got about 171 trillion in stablecoins, whereas in the US we have 20 quadrillion in stablecoin. Sorry, in US dollars. In their money.
I think that might even be billion. 171 billion.
No, that's right? Trillion.
Is that trillion?
Oh no, you're right. It's billion. It's billion.
So that's massive difference there. 20 quadrillion.
Oh, maybe it's 20 trillion actually. Maybe it's not 20 quadrillion.
Counting our commas wrong.
Yeah, I am counting the commas wrong. It's 20 trillion, not quadrillion. Sorry.
Quadrillion. I was like, that's
my
massive
mistake. I was excited to use the word quadrillion, to be perfectly honest, because I Googled this morning what comes after trillion. One thing that's really funny is it goes quadrillion, then quintillion, and then sextillion. And I can't wait until the day that somebody refers to themselves as a sextillionaire. That'll be
Elon.
There's memes behind that. Will be Elon. He'll love it.
Yeah. This next category, maybe one of my favorites. I think yours too. NFTs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Take us through this.
And so, this kind of just breaks down. Says we've seen several categories of NFTs emerge, but still very early days. And so, kind of the big main category of NFTs that we saw right off the bat is profile pictures, and these are used in social media as your avatar, kind of like your online identity. We're now seeing art and music, and that's a more efficient and transparent way for artists to monetize their work. Real excited about gaming and how that's going to play out. And then, just more of a focus on utility and then owning land and property within the virtual metaverse worlds.
Yes, so much application for NFTs, and it is so early, early. And this next graph really shows that is, since the middle of 2021, we basically had nothing happening with NFTs. Early 2021, like there was, middle 21 is kind of like there was a little bit happening, but not a lot. And then it was more like August last year, 2021 is really when things started to happen. And we saw a big spike in NFTs, and it's just continued to rise to the point that now we're at roughly we're over $1 billion in weekly sales volumes of NFTs. Like that is wild.
Yeah.
And it's still so early.
Exactly. I was about to say, I think we have, was it still just 1.5 million wallets that hold an NFT?
Yeah. I've seen, I'm not exactly sure of the stat. I've seen anywhere from 500,000 to 1.5 million. So it's wow. super low. This is one of the biggest takeaways, I think, from this report that gets us excited, that I know will get our audience excited, is Web3 platforms have drastically lower take rates than the internet giants of today. So you hear a lot about take rates as a mental model for the difference between Web 2 and Web 3. And the take rate is what percentage of revenue the platform takes. So Apple, the Apple Store, if you have an app on the Apple Store, Apple takes up to 30% of revenue for sales on the App Store. If you have videos on YouTube, if you're a creator on YouTube, YouTube takes up to 45%. If you're a creator on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, which is where most creators are, they take 100%. It's not exactly 100%. Like there's a very tiny little bit that flows back, but it's so minute, it's almost negligible. So whereas OpenSea, which is the largest NFT platform currently, and there's many other ones popping up always, OpenSea takes 2.5%. Like, which makes way more sense. That's what I'm not saying that marketplaces shouldn't take, or these platforms shouldn't take a percentage of revenue, because they're providing a great service and we need them, especially on the UX product side. But should they be taking 30 to 100%?
Definitely not. I think the quote that they have on here is hilarious. It's from a US congressman, but it says, there's something profoundly wrong with our economy when big tech has a higher take rate than the mafia. Just to illustrate that a little bit.
Shout out Richie Torres comparing big tech to the mafia.
The mafia, right?
Savage.
I think this is one of my favorite slides in their report. And it shows, you've got the creator economy, and it shows how NFTs are offering creators a whole new way to monetize directly with their fans. And it points out 4 different platforms. So on Facebook, you've got $300 million, and that's divided throughout 2.9 billion users. So an average of 10 cents per user.
10
YouTube,
cents.
10 cents. That's wild. Yeah. $15 billion, 37 million channels, average of $2.47 per channel. Spotify, this one's crazy too, $7 billion, got 11 million artists, and only $636 per artist.
Oh my God.
Which is, I don't know, that blows my mind for some reason. But then here you got NFTs, and with just a little over 22,000 creators, average take home rate for them is $174,000 per creator. Huge difference.
Huge. Yeah, like this is, I agree. This is the biggest one for me. One of the biggest takeaways of this entire report is that NFTs offer creators a way to monetize and actually create a living with while creating their art, their content, whatever you are creating. So if you're a creator, oh my gosh, you need to be getting into Web3. You need to be using it. You need to be learning it. Again, another big part of what Web3 Academy is all about is onboarding creators to use Web3 in order to create a consistent stream of revenue, because it's totally possible, right? If you're on Spotify, YouTube, or Facebook as a creator, you're making an average user is making somewhere between 10 cents to $600 a year. That's not what? It's a fucking joke. Whereas if you the average NFT last year, 174,000 per creator. Now, obviously, when you talk about NFTs, there's some massive NFT projects that will pull that average up, right? But I think that the writing is on the wall here. These old platforms are not doing it for the creators, and the creators need the value, because as Jeremy said earlier today, if we're going to WAGMI, if we're going to all make it, we got to take care of our creators, and we have to have value and money flowing to them.
Yeah. And it's about time too, because you've always heard the starving artist, they're doing something they love. They're providing a ton of value to the world, but there haven't been a lot of ways for them to monetize that. So I think it's hard for some people to make sense of doing that. But now that this is available, I'm excited, because I think it will just allow people to follow their passions a little bit more and be more creative and spend the time, that is required to create something amazing, and just spend that time creating.
Yeah. And I think there's so much talk when we talk about NFTs. Again, it's the same thing with crypto, like so much talk around price and investment, right? Like, should I buy an NFT? What does that look like, right? But more so what I think we need to focus on is NFTs is like using NFTs as a business model and as a way to change how we interact with our fans and how money flows between fans to creators. And that's the focus that we should be talking more about.
Yep. And I'm not sure, I think it might be further down in the report, but I'd just written it down earlier. So just based off of royalties on OpenSea alone, I think about almost $4 billion have been paid out to creators just from secondary sales on OpenSea.
Wow.
And that's unheard of, right? Like to be able to continually make money off of something that you create is so cool.
Very good point. Yeah, very good point. Let's skip this. Let's get into Web3 gaming. If you haven't listened to our podcast, which we actually just released a few days ago, where we interviewed Alex Cooper from Footprint Analytics and talked all about Web3 gaming. Web3 gaming is the next big thing in crypto and Web3 for sure. Like, this is going to absolutely explode in the next, year, a few years, and it's going to onboard. I believe it's going to onboard the most people to crypto and Web3 more than anything else, because there's 3 billion gamers in the world, and there's only 7 million Web3 gamers right now. So we got a long way to go. But yeah, I just get so excited and so fired up talking about Web3 gaming, or GameFi, it's often referred to as.
And I think gaming's always been huge, but I feel like it's really blown up the past couple of years with, e-gaming. You got a whole, sports leagues and Twitch where people are streaming, and it's a really cool community.
And this page is really interesting because this is a page that compares the video game industry to the music industry, and how the video game industry saw massive growth as a result of tech innovation and internet growth over the last 30 years. Whereas the music industry actually decreased. So the video game industry went from, this is, what's the date here? This was like 1980. So it went from about 20 billion in 1980 to 110 billion. That's the video game industry over the last, since 1980, so the last 40 years. Whereas the music industry in 1980 was, let's say, 35 billion. It grew through the 90s to about 40 billion. And then it dropped to now in 2020, it's about 20 billion. So like, that doesn't really make any sense to me, right? Like, music is just as big as video gaming. I think you might actually argue it's bigger. 3 billion people play video games, but I would say every single human on earth listens to music, right?
It's like part of our DNA.
Yeah. So what happened here is, and this is just really interesting to look at, like, how technology impacts an industry, right? Video games, when the internet came along, they embraced the technology. And as a result of that, new business models were created, virtual goods were created. It led to complementary behaviors like streaming, right? Like Twitch, what that did for video gaming, YouTube, there's a huge, I think the largest creator or the largest channel on YouTube is a gamer. It's a kid who plays games and publishes himself playing games, and other people watch him play games, which is bonkers to probably me and Jeremy, because we would never do that. But a huge part of a lot of people's lives, they love gaming, and the best way to learn about gaming, I mean, heck, I love sports, so I watch live sports. If I loved gaming in the same way that I love sports, why wouldn't I watch gaming, right? So video gaming embraced technology, they embraced the internet, boom, huge growth, right? 20 billion to 120 billion. Music didn't embrace. They spent the last 40 years responding with lawsuits and pushing back against innovation. And what did that do? It led to a decrease in the size of their industry. So I think video gaming and Web3 is going to be the first thing, or the biggest thing I think now, because it's already got that culture, it's youthful, it's young, and it's going to bring on the next billion people to Web3. But music clearly has an opportunity, if music embraces Web3, to, and I think they are, and I think it's happening, to also have huge growth.
This next slide is awesome. I didn't realize that these numbers were as big as they are, but so it shows that 20% of NFT sales volume in 2021 came from gaming related assets. Then you've got 49% of crypto wallet activity comes from games, so half. And then 50+%, or no, 50, what does it say, live web games with more than, so there's 50 live Web3 games with more than 1,000 unique on-chain users, and that's still just so small.
Yeah, the thing that the stat that blows my mind here is that 50% of crypto wallet activity comes from games right now, like today, and gaming is so, like GameFi, Web3 gaming is so small, and it's already 50%, right? So, yeah, wow.
That's insane. Yeah, because right now you just hear NFTs all over the place, but 50% of it is coming from games.
Yeah. This next slide talks about the metaverse and how interest in the metaverse has exploded, with land sales totaling nearly $2 billion in total, like total volume over the course of all history since metaverse lands were sold, which again, I think just shows, I'm a little bit skeptical on whether we should be buying and selling land in the metaverse. I'm still not sold that makes sense when there's a reason we buy land in the real world, because land is scarce in the real world, right? There's a scarcity to it. So property ownership makes sense. But in the metaverse, there's no, it's indefinite, right? There can be unlimited land. So I'm still not sure about buying and selling land, but I think that the point that this makes is, like, really when we talk about the metaverse, we're talking a lot about these games, about video games, and this idea of, rather than it being a Web2 video game, it being a Web3 video game, just kind of the metaverse is the word used to describe that often. And so if there's already 2 billion sales in land, it just shows there's a lot of interest in the metaverse and in the creation of video games, which allow ownership, right? And land is one of the things you could own in a game.
What's crazy is the top seller is Other Side, and that just recently came out in the past, month or so, but it has already done double what the next one is, a Sandbox and Decentraland at what we got there, $750 million in just a couple of months, or a month.
Wild.
DAOs
are
exciting.
This is so exciting because I think that to me, this is one of the big unlocks of Web3, is the ability to coordinate human effort in a new way, right? Like there's a big issue when our current way to coordinate human effort is through the current company structures that we have, like the LLC, the partnerships. That's the only way to currently create human effort. And so, and what this slide talks about is how, what does that do? It means that you have a hierarchical organization. It's usually not transparent. It's invite only, and it's not global. You can't take advantage of global resources. Whereas in comparison to a DAO is grassroots, it's fully transparent, it's open, and it's fully global. Now, we actually have quite a few podcasts coming up, spotlight podcasts with different people who have spent a lot of times in DAOs, and we're going to talk a lot about the positives of DAOs and the struggles that they are having at building these decentralized organizations and teams. Because as you can imagine, there's a lot of challenges around creating a decentralized team, right? How do you make decisions? How do you create pace? Who's the visionary, right? But this concept of DAOs makes so much sense to me. The best example I heard recently of what is a DAO was using Alcoholics Anonymous, AA, as an example of a DAO, because basically Alcoholics Anonymous is a completely decentralized organization. There is no centralized company that runs it. It's essentially what Alcoholics Anonymous is a protocol that somebody created. It's a 12-step system is actually the protocol that it is. And that system is used by community groups all around the world to help people overcome addiction to alcohol. And what that has led to is really one of the largest decentralized organizations in the world that has huge impacts and creates change. And so that's, the current world use of DAOs, but I think that you can think about how that could grow and, really have a huge impact on the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that example of Alcoholics Anonymous. That's just a great example. This next slide shows that DAOs have accumulated more than $10 billion in treasury assets under management. And it looks like most of that growth happened in August of last year, and it's just been kind of slightly going up since then. But yeah, July of 2021, we were at, what was that, probably maybe a billion. And then by the end of the year, hopped up to probably 12 billion there. And now it's kind of sitting at around 10.
Yeah. And I think the real takeaway here for our listeners is get involved in a DAO. That would be my takeaway. If you don't know how to get involved in a DAO, if you're not sure what the steps are, it is, like anything, can be confusing and intimidating. Shoot us a message, hop into our Discord. Happy to help you figure out what DAOs are available, how to get involved with them, because that's the best way to learn, right? Is to start joining these DAOs, because you'll learn so much by being involved with them. And this is really, I think, one of the big areas where there's big opportunity. Now, there is some struggles and some challenges. One thing that DAOs struggle with is figuring out how to compensate their team members, because right now compensation in a DAO often happens through their native token. And if you get compensated their native token, then you have to be able to go to a market and sell that native token into your fiat currency in order to pay yourself and live your life. And that is a little bit of a challenging step that happens right now. And the native token, these tokens often fluctuate greatly, or maybe there isn't enough liquidity in the market. So there's some challenges there, but I think the great thing about a DAO is this doesn't need to be a full-time job for you, right? Like, you could get involved in a DAO, spend a few hours a week, even just get involved in a DAO and give them a few hours and just see and learn. That would be my recommendation.
Love that. So is this slide right here showing the decisions made within DAOs?
Yeah, isn't this interesting? I was like, where did they get this data from?
I know. So it looks like within DAOs, it says a new bottom up way for groups to make decisions, and it shows 56,000 decisions have been made, I guess, within a DAO. 3.4 million total votes have taken place, and 657,000 active voters and proposal makers are within these DAOs. So those are really cool numbers. I didn't realize there were that many.
Yeah, fascinating. This all comes from, I see the source here is deepdao.io, which is, I guess, a data company that pulls DAO data. And the reason you can do this, because a lot of this data is on the blockchain, right? So, but yeah, I mean, you nailed it. Like, wow, isn't this so cool to see? Like, imagine being part of an organization where you can vote on the decisions, as opposed to just, oh, my company, well, my bosses make all the decisions, so I have no ability to impact anything, right? That's, what a flip in hierarchy and in governance and in opportunity. And really, it's going to lead to better products in my mind.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So that's the report.
Yeah. So we got some closing thoughts here. Let's pick out a couple of these that are worth sharing. They got a slide about crypto making real world impact, and they have 5 examples of 5 different Web3 companies. It's really interesting to me that they use the word crypto versus Web3. And Jeremy and I were talking about this before the podcast, is just how crypto is still the most well-known label for this industry and this technology and this innovation. Whereas Web3 is still not so well known yet. So it's funny to me that they called this the state of crypto report as opposed to the state of Web3 report, because really this is more the state of Web3, but crypto is still the branded term. Anyways, real world impact. I just wanted to call out, they listed helium on here. So helium is a telecom industry. The reason I want to call it out is we had helium on the podcast about a month ago. And basically, the telecom industry currently it's controlled by monopolies, right? There's these monopolies that control the telecom industry. Now, telecom is really not something that should be controlled by monopolies. This is communication, right? This is how we communicate around the world. And so helium wants to change that. So helium is building towards a future where network coverage becomes a commodity fueled by competition, available anywhere in the world at a fraction of current costs. So basically what you can do with helium is anybody can become a member of helium, and you buy a unit that you put in your house that connects to that you put in your house and that gives out a signal for others to connect to. So what they're doing is, in big cities, if enough people have these units, then they can create Wi-Fi networks for you to connect to. Now, they're not focused right now on Wi-Fi, and I don't really need to get into these weeds. Anyways, point is, telecom will be decentralized in the future because of somebody like helium.
Very cool. And I, interested to see what other industries get, just massively transformed by this. This is a cool chart right here. It shows the number of internet users versus Ethereum addresses. And so right now, in the end of 2021, 2022, says that we've got an estimated 7 to 50 million Ethereum users. What does this internet say?
Internet had probably about the same after it's like, we're looking at about 6 years in, right? So internet was created in the early 90s. After 6 years of the internet, it was about the same size as Web3 is after 6 years of Web3, right? And if you look at this, if we follow the same trajectory as the internet, which it is very likely we will, and all smart people, experts believe we will follow the same trajectory, that means we would be at 1 billion users by 2030.
Crazy. So
what's the takeaway here? It is so freaking early.
So early.
Maybe that's what, maybe the Web3 word of the day should have been early. That's what it should have been. But it's early. It is so early. There's so many times that I've heard people say like, oh, I'm late to the party. I didn't get into crypto early enough. I've been
victim of that. Like all the time I'll get FOMO for different things. I'm like, oh, I should have done, put more into this, or I wish I got in earlier. But then I'll look at something like this and be like, wow, we are extremely early. There's still so much time before, it's going to, really take off and onboard the billion users.
Yeah. It's
good,
really
good reminder.
It's really like we are so early. So if you're here, you're in the right place and you are early to the party. And the truth of the matter is, if you're early to something, especially something about like Web3, where value flows towards the users, you don't even necessarily need to I think a lot of people come into Web3 and they're like, oh my gosh, I have to know exactly, which DAOs I should join, or where I should put my money, or what I should invest in, or which DeFi protocols I should look into, or like which NFT projects I should buy. But if you're early, it doesn't matter what you do. You'll ride the wave the whole way, no matter what. Just by being here, you will reap a lot of benefit.
Yeah, just participating and engaging with all the different communities, and yeah.
Okay, so some closing thoughts they give. What's next? I think they give 5 main thoughts of what's next. So I'll just run through them really quickly. First, Web3 infrastructure will continue to improve. So there will be a growth of layer 1s and layer 2s, and really a focus on improving the environmental impact, because a lot of people talk about the environmental impact of the current blockchain technology. There'll be a focus on that, and there'll be a focus on reducing transaction costs while keeping security high. So that's one thing that's going to be happening. I think another big thing, and Jerry, you and I both believe is huge, is there's going to be more creators embracing NFTs. I mean, if you just listen to this podcast and you're a creator and you're not embracing NFTs, you're probably sitting there being like, whoa, what? Spotify artist made $600 on average, whereas an NFT creator made 150,000. Like, see you later, Spotify. So it'd be a lot of creators embracing NFTs. Third thing is GameFi, Web3 gaming is going to explode. I heard recently that there is 1,000 games currently, Web3 games currently in production that aim to launch within the next year, I think, but even some of them are launching rather soon. And the big thing here is these aren't like little, a lot of the Web3 games right now are low quality because games take so much time to produce and they just haven't had the time. So there's high quality games. So just watch Alex Cooper, who we had on the podcast the other day, predicted the GameFi summer. He didn't predict if it's going to be this summer. So we'll see if it's this summer or if it's next summer. But it's coming. Number 4, the fourth thing that they talk about is that there will be an interesting flow of Web3 users earning tokens and NFTs through games. And then what they're going to look to do is, okay, what do you do with those tokens and NFTs that you earn through games? Well, they're going to look to use DeFi protocols to invest those tokens, to get lending around those tokens. And what does that mean? That means a lot less money in the traditional finance system. So you're going to see a lot of growth in DeFi users as more people just have tokens and they're like, oh man, I made these tokens from this game. What do I do with it? Right. So DeFi is really going to explode. And then the last thing that they predict is that we can expect many more experiments with DAOs, social tokens, decentralized social networks, Web3 media, and other emerging categories. So they're sort of bucketing it all together here. We've seen the breakouts with DeFi. We've seen the breakouts with NFTs. And now I think the next big one we're all predicting is GameFi, Web3 gaming. But beyond that, DAOs, social tokens, decentralized networks, decentralized social media, all of those things are going to be others that will break out in the coming years as well.
It's exciting because I was a huge gamer growing up, and I'd always get yelled at for spending too much time playing games. And it's like now, you'll be able to, profit from it. It's gonna be a cool time. The younger me would be loving to be young right now during this.
No doubt. But we are young, Jer. Come on.
We are
Come
young.
on.
That's true.
Jer Bear. You're just a little cup.
Reframe.
Okay, so as we always do on our weekly roll-up, we highlight either a Web3 protocol, a DAO, an NFT, or a Web3 person of the month. This week, it is our Web3 person of the month, and it probably comes as no surprise that our Web3 person of the month is not one person, but it is a team. It is the team of Anderson Horowitz, a16z. Huge shout out for this report that you made. Really gave a overview that I think we all needed of stepping back and not getting caught in the weeds and seeing the bigger picture. So thank you so much to the whole team at Andreessen Horowitz. Jared's got the team up here on the website. You listeners can't see this, but he's scrolling through, and there's a big team. There's a lot of people there.
Yeah, I had no idea it was this large. Like,
so I think
incredible.
Chris Dixon is the name that comes to mind because he's such a big face, and he's got a big following on Twitter. He does a lot of podcasts. I know he was speaking at Permissionless Conference, which is happening right now. So he's the name to come to mind, but the whole team at Andreessen Horowitz for putting this State of Crypto report together and for being leaders. And one thing I think we wanted to mention as well is if you want to learn more, Andreessen Horowitz also has a entire resources and content production system, or they have a page basically. They call it Future. We'll put the link in the show notes. And basically this is incredible top quality research and content that they produce, not just around crypto. They have a specific crypto Web3 section, but they actually produce a lot of other stuff, but their stuff around crypto is amazing. So highly recommend you check that out.
Yeah, I think if you want to take a deeper dive into some of the stuff we talked about, we'll link the report that they just put out. And then, they've just got a ton of great content on here that I think you could get lost in, go down a ton of rabbit holes and really just learn a lot. They do a great job of researching and producing good work there.
Man, I am feeling bullish on Web3 after today. This is awesome. I am fired up. Let's build. Let's recognize that we're early. Man, there's so much happening. Couple of shills for Web3 Academy. If you are not in our Discord, please come join our Discord. We have now token gated our Discord. It's free to join. We just ask that you apply because we're focused on quality over quantity. We want to make a Discord that is a bunch of Web3 doers that are actually doing and actually building, in a place where you can meet and connect with other doers and learn how to onboard onto Web3. If you are a developer trying to find a job in Web3, if you are a non-tech trying to find a job in Web3 and you don't know how, please reach out. We'd love to help you figure out how to take the steps to onboard onto Web3 and to feel comfortable applying for a Web3 job. I know that there's a lot to learn. And so we want to be part of that process. So if there's anything we can do to help you, if there's a resource you want made, if there's a podcast you want us to shoot and to film and to something specific you want us to talk about, we will do that for you. I'm also available to get on a one-on-one call. So really do not hesitate to reach out. Also, I just want to ask, this was a bit of a unique show today. We've never done this where we focused on one report. This was unique because this report was just so fresh, just came out yesterday. And it also is such a great overview of the space and really lays it out in a way that we got excited about. But did you like it? Let us know. What'd you think about this show today? If you liked it and you think that we should do more shows like this, maybe in the future we'll find more reports and do shows where we just highlight a report and do a walkthrough of the report. We'd love to hear from you guys. Feedback is so helpful for us.
Absolutely. I had fun. I thought it was cool to kind of dive deeper into some of this stuff.
Yeah. Let's get some chats going on the Discord as well. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. Hug a loved one, practice gratitude, and keep smiling out there. We love you guys.
Love you.
Thank you for listening to Web3 Academy. We hope this helps you along your Web3 journey. And if it does, please share this episode and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. By the way, if you have yet to join the Discord community, you are missing out. This is where all the magic happens. This is where we learn, where we ask questions, where we network. You want to be in there. The link to join is in the description below. And finally, a quick disclaimer. Nothing in this podcast was financial advice. Crypto and Web3 can be risky. You can literally lose it all. In fact, if you invest on account of what we say, you probably will lose it all. So don't do that. In all honesty, the point of this podcast is to remove the noise of markets and price and focus on utility and implementation anyway. So you should not take any of this as financial advice. Thank you, friends, and see you in the next one.